This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, you're audible, Subhana. Audible.
Oh, ma'am. Okay. ഹൃദയരാഗതന്ത്രി മീട്ടി സ്നേഹഗീതമേകിയും കർമ്മഭൂമി തളിരിടുന്ന വർണ്ണമേകിയും നമ്മിൽ വാഴുമാതിനാമം ഇന്ന് വാഴ്ത്തിടാ ഞങ്ങൾ പാടുമീ സ്വരങ്ങൾ കീർത്തനങ്ങളാകണേ ചൂടുവയ്ക്കുമീ പദങ്ങൾ നൃത്തലോലമാകണേ കുഞ്ഞു വീടിനുൾക്കളങ്ങൾ സ്വർഗമാകണേ അമ്മ നൽകുമുമ്മ പോലും അമൃതമാകണേ പൂർണ്ണ
Thank you, Subhana. Thank you, Subhana. Even though there was some issues towards the end, I call upon Ram Manohar Sai, our final year student, for the welcome address. Ram Manohar.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
You're audible, Ram. You can talk.
Okay. First of all, a lovely good evening to all. In a bid to wisely utilize the time tormented by the pandemic, the Panchagama Department of Ashtanga Ayurveda Vidyapeetham came up with a blooming initiative Karma Siddhi webinar series. After the 4 successful sessions, he is presenting the 5th session of Karma Siddhi. And it is a special privilege for me to welcome you all on behalf of our Ashtangam family. We are highly elated to have the presence of Dr. Shibu Varghese, Professor of Panchagama Department and Medical Superintendent of Nangeli Ayurveda Medical College, Kodamangalam, for dealing our topic Mode of Action of Swedanam. I welcome you, sir. Next, I welcome Dr. Rahul R. Nair, sir, Professor and HOD, Department of Roganidanam and Vigruti Vijnanam, Ashtangam Ayurveda Vidyapeetham, for words of felicitation. I also welcome our beloved teachers of Panchagama Department. I welcome Dr. Rimmi Radhakrishna ma'am, Vice Principal and HOD of Department of Panchakarma. And also Dr. Sripavati ma'am, Assistant Professor of Department of Panchakarma, Ashtangam Ayurveda Vidyapeetham. Now I welcome all the delegates who had came here to attend the session. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you. Even though we are a bit late, we have, as a part of our usual process, Ashtangam always stands as a family with all departments coming together to support all our activities. So to felicitate today's Karma Siddhi series, which is the 5th presentation of Karma Siddhi series, today we have Dr. Rahul R. Nair, HOD Department of Roganidanam. I request Dr. Rahul R. Nair to felicitate the program.
Hello all. I am indeed very happy to attend this program, Karma Siddhi, as part of the academic activities happening in Ashtangam. Karma Siddhi has been planned in an organized fashion to deliver the high quality lectures of different faculty members in different colleges working in Kerala, especially to the students of Ashtangam and also to all the enthusiasts, learning enthusiasts who are receiving these classes all through India. Myself, a faculty member of Roga Nidhanam, I am very curiously, I used to watch this program because all the faculty members who usually attend this program for delivering their experiences were all highly meritful. And my department, Roga Nidhanam, being the pathological arm of Kaya Chikitsa, and Panchakarma happens to be the procedural arm of Kaya Chikitsa. Both are having a very relevant role in shaping a clinician. So, and moreover, for us today, the topic is regarding Swedana Karma, which happens to be a very highly interesting subject. And many a time, Swedana Karma has been happened to be mistaken as Panchakarma by the common people also. And even though the Panchakarma has been assigned to be the important Swedana Karmas, which we usually practice in the hospital settings, the Swedana Karma is having a role even in daycare OPD basis practices. So being a graduate student, for all those graduate students and also for other clinicians, it is very important to master the art of execution of Swedana Karma. And for us today, we are blessed by the presence of Dr. Shibu Varghese, who is indeed one of the most senior professors of Panchakarma in Kerala state, who is working in Nangeli Ayurveda Medical College. And he is having years of experience. Myself first encountered with him as I scrolled through a very useful book of him regarding the radiological aspects of the clinical and radiological aspects of spinal diseases. It is a wonderful book written by Dr. Shibu sir, and he is a learned professor. He is an enthusiastic clinician. He is running his own hospital, and he is having a great experience, a wealth of experience in diagnosis as well as execution of the Panchakarma procedures. And I extend my heartfelt felicitations to the organizers of this program as well as all the learning enthusiasts who has assembled here to hear the words of Dr. Shibu. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul. So we are extremely happy to have Dr. Shibu Varghese over here with us. As you all know, Dr. Shibu Varghese sir actually is one of the senior most faculty in Panchakarma in the private sector, and I think he's one of the senior person and senior most faculty to be joining in Private Ayurveda College also. He has been the founder member of Private Ayurveda College Teachers Organization. Other than having a tradition of Ayurveda Vaidyas in his family, he is now also the director of Kalarikal Ayurveda Hospital in Kodamangalam, along with being a faculty at Nangelil Ayurveda Medical College. So very enthusiastic as far as an Ayurvedic clinical diagnosis is concerned, treatment, everything is concerned. We are extremely happy to have Dr. Shibu Varghese with us. So I think we all will be having an enlightening session. So I hand over the session to Shibu Varghese sir, and we are all waiting for your session, sir. Even though we could start it late, I'm so sure that we'll be having a wonderful time with you. Sir, please.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Parvati. Hello.
Yes, sir. Now we are audible. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay, thank you. Am I audible to you properly?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So, shall we start? Is there any? So I can
Start,
straight
sir,
away
we
go to
can
my
start.
class, or is there any introduction or something is left?
No, it's
Start.
it's all finished. Now you can start.
Okay. The- Okay, very good afternoon to all. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Renmia for inviting to this section. And first of all, I should ask apology to all because due to some technical problem, I couldn't log in. So almost 45 minutes is over than the scheduled time. So, absolutely sorry for that. Due to the congestion in the network, I don't know what happened. I couldn't log in time. So, so let me straight away start into the class. So my topic is mode of action of Swedana. So before going to the Swedana, I would say there is a branch called as Kerliya Panchakarma. Actually, Kerliya Panchakarma means there is no special Panchakarma apart from 5 Panchakarmas, but our forefathers or the Ashtavidya tradition family has developed a few system of Swedana that is actually named as Kerliya Panchakarma. So in the name of that Swedana, we are extensively using the Swedana in each and every disease. And we are practicing that extensively without where to use, where not to use. So my focus today is to which all areas where Swedana should not be used and what are the precautions to be taken while doing the Swedana. That will be my focus on today. And regarding the Ayurvedic aspects of all the types of Sweta and all the things, Dr. Remya has taken a better class for you. So I think there's no need to go in detail into all those things. So I will be focusing more on the contraindications and indications of Sweta, that too in the present, especially in the modern disease aspects. Next slide, please. Sriparvati? Hello? Hello?
1 second, sir. Sir, next slide have come. You may continue, sir.
Okay. Okay. Swedana, Stamba Gaurava Shidagnam, Swedanam, Swedakarakam. So as you know, Swedana is one thing which induces sweating by relieving the Stamba, Gaurava and Shidagna of the body. Next slide.
I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not able to move the slide. Just a second.
ശ്രീപാർവതി സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ എന്നുള്ള മാറ്റിയിട്ട് മറ്റേ രീതിയിൽ പറ്റുമോ നോക്കൂ.
I think now it is visible, no, sir?
Yes, visible.
Okay. We continue, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Sir, you may
I lost the
continue.
connection in between actually.
Okay.
Okay. This is importance of Svedana. I'm just skipping the first 2-3 parts. Srival, can you just go to the slide number 5, slide number 5. Let's go to slide number 5 because already we are so late, so we'll just. So the types of Svedana, one is Agni, based on the Agni Veda, it is divided into Niragni and Sagni. Based on the Guna Anusara, it is Snigdha, Ruksha, and Snigdha Ruksha. Snigdha means the Patra bodily Sveda, Ruksha means Churna Pinda Sveda, Snigdha Ruksha means Jambira Pinda Sveda, etc. And based on the Sthanika Veda, it can be divided into two. One is Ekanga and Sarvanga. And Prayoga Veda, it can be classified into Murdu, Madhyama, and Mahan. Next slide, please. So 13 types of Sveda described as per Charaka. I'm not going into the details of that. Next, please. Now, these are the Nirakni Svedas, Vyayama, Ushma Sadhana, Guru Pravarna, Shuddha. Thus you all know. Next slide. Srivali, next slide, please. So there is a transfer of heat occurs in any of the following ways. One is through the conduction. That means direct contact. Suppose a hot brick is been coming into contact with our body. That is the contact. Convection means it is the movement. Suppose a hot board is kept below you. The heat will be experienced when you are lying above. That is called as convection. And evaporation is through a liquid gas transfer. That's evaporation. And radiation. That means electromagnetic waves. In the physiotherapy methods, you know, diathermy, shortwave, ultrasound, etc. These are all the electromagnetic wave. Or in the X-rays, you will get a heat. That is the radiation. So these are the 4 types of heat transfer which generally occurs in the body. Next. So heat has been mainly classified into 2. One is dry heat and moist heat. Dry heat means we are not coming in contact with any of the watery material. That means dry heat, hot water bottles or heated bricks exposed to sunlight, lying under a blanket, etc. These are the examples of dry heats. And moist heats are steam bath, avgaha sweda, then dipping in a hot water, nadi sweda, steam through a pipe, etc. These are moist heat. These are the two types of heat which generally apply to human body for the therapeutic aspects of Swedana. One is dry and moist, and we can again divide into local heat application and generalized heat. Local heat, if you are having a knee joint pain, if you are applying a potli sweda to the knee, that is the local, and bashpa sweda, which is given to the entire body, that is the generalized application. Next slide. This is the therapeutic uses of heat application. The main therapeutic uses of heat application, one is to relieve the pain and congestion, to provide warmth at that area, to promote suppuration. Suppose if there is a small inflammation, to promote a suppuration for abscess, etc., we require a heat application. To promote healing. Suppose if you are having a sprain in the ankle, if you apply heat after the acute phase is over, it promotes the healing. To decrease the muscle tone, especially if there is a rigid joints in such condition, to decrease the muscle tone, we have to give heat therapy. To soften the exudate, suppose if you are having a small injury, if you apply heat at that area, more like exudates from the blood vessels will exudate into the surrounding area. These are the therapeutic uses of heat application. Next. Next slide, please. So the primary physiological aspect, when we apply a heat to a particular area, let us see what are the physiological effects happening at that site. Whenever we initiate a heat therapy to a particular site, there will be a peripheral vasodilatation. That means the blood vessels will be dilated. And so there will be increased capillary permeability. So whatever substance we apply to that particular area, there will be permeable to that substances. If you apply oil, there will be a permeability of that oil into the cell membrane. Then increase the oxygen consumption. More oxygen will be consumed at that area, so that regeneration or healing process will be fastened. And increase the local metabolism. So the increase the local metabolism also fastens the healing process at that injured site, and decrease the blood viscosity. The blood viscosity, the thickness of the blood will be reduced, so that there will be more blood will supply to that particular area of injury. Decrease the muscle tone in stiff, rigid joints, especially in Parkinson's or in hemiplegia. In such condition, there will be increase the muscle tone. So to decrease the muscle tone, Swedana can be used, or heat therapy can be used. Then increase the lymph flow and increase the motility of leukocytes. Suppose if there is an infection, what will happen? The leukocytes will come and engulf the microorganisms, and so the healing will be faster. So these are the primary physiological effects of hot application. Next. Next slide, please. Heat therapy in pathophysiology. In an injury state, how does this heat therapy helps to overcome the conditions? As I said, initially there will be a vasod. Suppose if there is a sprain at a site, what will happen? Initially there will be a vasodilatation. So more blood will reach at that site. And later there will be increased metabolic rate and relaxers from muscle spasm. Suppose if there is an injury, what will happen? Because severe pain, the patient will not be able to move the joint. So following a heat therapy, there will be relaxation of the muscle spasm, so that the joints will be moved. Then pain relief. Pain relief is obtained by a gate control mechanism. So you might be aware about a gate control mechanism. So if two stimulus is given at a time, the brain barrier will block that. Suppose if you are having a pain, along with the pain, if you give a temperature stimulus or of hot or cold, what will happen? Both stimulus simultaneously go over there and it blocks that. So, for example, many times in the clinical practice, sometimes children will be present with the crying saying that there is an abdominal pain. If you tickle at some other side, suppose if you tickle at the hand or cheek, what will happen? The it stops crying, because we are given a other stimulus along with the pain stimulus. We are given a tickle stimulus. What will the tickle stimulus? What will happen? There will be the pain stimulus will be blocked. So there will be a transient pain relief will be there. Patient, the bystander may be one day know as soon as the doctor touches the kid stops strain. Actually, it is because of we have utilized this principle during the abdominal pain. That means when two stimulus is given at a time, it blocks the stimulus to the brain so that pain will not be experienced. So whenever you apply heat at that particular area, the pain is relieved because of the gate control mechanism in the pain management. Then increase the elasticity of connective tissue. Whenever we apply heat, there will be increase the elasticity of the connective tissue will be there. It also works by stimulating a fibroblast problem. Suppose if there is a tendon injury, mild tendon injury, a tendon injury generally heals by a fibroblastic proliferation. So whenever we apply heat, what is more and more fibroblasts will be deposited at the site of the injury and healing will be accelerated. In that aspect, the heat is also helpful. Plus, is accelerating an endothelial cell proliferation. Again, in the healing of these endothelial cells, there will be a proliferation of the endothelial cells whenever you give a heat therapy. Then improved phagocytic activity in inflammatory cells. Suppose if there is inflammatory arthritis or any such conditions, there will be improved phagocytic activity and inflammation will be reduced. And it is believed to have a relaxing effect on the muscle tone by reducing the muscle spindle and gamma efferent firing rates. Next slide, please. Next slide. So normally there are three types of heat. Whenever you apply a warmth or Svedana to an area, heat therapy to an area, there are mainly three types. One is warm, hot, and very hot. In terms of Fahrenheit, we call a warm, it is 98 degree Fahrenheit. If it is hot, we call it between 98 to 104 degree Fahrenheit. If it is very hot, above 104 degree Fahrenheit. That is the classification of temperature. In case of centigrade, warm is 37 to 40. And hot is 40 to 46 and very hot is above 46. That is the classification of temperature which generally adopted whenever we give some heat therapies. Next slide, please. Next slide. Is optimal heat. So whenever we apply a heat, generally as far as the therapists are concerned or we doctors are, our thinking is that whenever we give maximum heat, maximum benefit will be obtained from the patient. That's an absolutely wrong thinking. There has to be always an optimal heat. The optimal heat is always between 40 to 45 degrees centigrade. If you give more than 45 degrees centigrade, instead of giving a therapeutic benefit, it gives complication to the patient. Never give heat more than 45 degrees centigrade. So more heat does not give benefit, but instead it causes more painful and inflammatory conditions. Normally 90% of the heat is absorbed and the penetration is up to 1 centimeter, maximum 3 millimeter, maximum up to 1 centimeter. That's the normal penetration of a heat therapy. Our portlets or PHL, all these things will go up to only 1 centimeter. But certain deep penetrating heat modalities in physiotherapy like diathermy, ultrasound, etc., they can go up to 3 centimeter to 5 centimeter. But normal in our case, it can go only up to 1 centimeter. Then deep penetration can be obtained by moist heat, like Nadiswed and all can give maximum heat penetration. But always be conscious that vigorous heating is contraindicated in severe inflammatory lesions, resulting in non-inflammatory fibrosis. So never give more heating because it results in fibrosis of that particular site. That is the one complication if you give more heat at that site. And later, once it results in fibrosis, even after some time, if you give again heat, that therapeutic effect of heat will not be obtained by the patient. So it has to be always in an optimal level, that will be between 40 to 45 degrees centigrade. Never exceed that limit. Next. So let's see what will happen if we give more excess heat above 45 degrees centigrade. If we apply heat, what is going to happen? So initially, if more heat, it leads to the protein degradation. So there will be more damage to the particular site of muscle, etc. and there will be reduction in the tissue metabolism. If you give mild heat, what will happen? There will be an increase in the tissue metabolism. If you give more heat, what will happen? There will be reduction in the tissue metabolism. Enzymes are denatured. The enzymes will be destroyed, and histamines will be released. And alterations in the fibrous tissue. Lot many fibrous tissue will be deposited, and what will happen? That it results in inflammatory fibrosis of the particular structure. It results in more of the stiffness and pain, etc. So there will be aggravation. When more heat is given, it results in aggravation of pain, fibrosis, and again, finally, it may lead to necrosis. If the excess heat is given for a continuous time, finally, it may result in the necrosis. So always think in mind, if you give more heat, what will happen? Protein degradation will happen, reduction in the tissue metabolism, enzymes will be denatured, histamine will be released, and alteration in the fibrous, more fibrous tissue will be deposited, and stiffness will be increased, and there will be aggravation of the pain, finally fibrosis and necrosis. These are the complications of excessive heat therapy. Next. Next slide. This is the beneficial effects of Svedana. So first is Shida Shulakshayam, that means pain relieving action is there. Then Angamardhan, the reduction in the tenderness. After Svedana is given, there will be a reduction in the tenderness, and there will be analgesic acid action, that means pacification of the doshas, Vata dosha, and movements will be made easy. There will be stiffness of the joints will be relieved, and there will be easy movement of the joints. That means reduction in the pain. Next. Next slide, please. Then harmful effects. If suppose if you give too much of Sweda, or if Sweda is given in an inappropriate patient, especially those who are having a Pitta dosha, because usually for Vata and Kapha dosha, Sweda is given. If it is given to Pitta dosha, or if more Sweda is given, it leads to harmful effects. One is Pitta Pragova. So it may be seen as a bleeding diastasis, especially patients with the thrombocytopenia or any of the bleeding disorders. Never administer Sweda, because it can lead in bleeding diastasis. Then throat, that means perspiration will be increased. Too much of sweating will be there. If you give too much of Sweda, there will throat will be there, and more sweating, and there will be severe dehydration. Murcha, because normally there is a thermoregulation. Gradually the body adapts to a increased temperature. But if you give more heat, what will happen? The thermoregulation will be disrupted, and the patient results in murcha. And what will happen? Peripheral, when we give more heat, there will be peripheral vasodilatation, and the internal organ, visceral organs will not receive a proper blood supply, and finally patient will be having a murcha. Then Angasadana, there will be autonomous neuropathy and extra dehydration, and there will be Angasadana. And Brahman usually happens because of a hypothalamic dysfunction, and because of there will be a drop in the blood pressure. These are the reasons for the Brahman. And Sandipida, especially in children, if you apply too much of heat, especially in children, those who are having their bones not grown completely, especially the ends of the bones has not been completely fused. In such condition, there will be Sandipida, which results in arthritis, especially if more heat is given in children. Then Jara, fever will be there because of the failure in thermoregulation. Sometimes patient may have experience high fever if you give extra heat. Then Shavada, there will be discoloration of the skin, ecchymosis will be there. Rektamandalam, erythema scars will be there, especially in old age people, if old age or children, if more heat is given, or if the patient is already having a hemorrhagic tendency, and if more heat is given, it may lead to erythema scars. Then Chardi, because of the psychosomatic effect and because of the brain damage, there will be continuous vomiting will be. These are the harmful effects of Svedana. Next slide. Next. This is precautions while doing a Svedana. Because before doing a Svedana, we have to take lot of precautions, and preparations has to be done. So before doing a Svedana, sensory examination has to be done, because we need to delineate or differentiate between hot and cold stimuli, and how the body responds to hot and cold stimuli need to be properly assessed. for that sensory examination, we need to suppose a small heat has to be applied. Suppose if patients are complaints of numbness on the lateral thigh, we need to delineate that area and put heat at the site and see whether the patient is able to perceive that heat or not. If your patient is not able to perceive the heat, if the sensory impulse is not properly assimilated at that site, what has to be done? When we do the Swedana, we have to be very cautious at that site. So, test sensory examination is very important before starting a Swedana procedure. Suppose if the patient is paraplegic, do a sensory examination to whether the patient is able to sense heat or not. If the patient is not able to sense the heat, then very milder heat has to be applied that site. Otherwise, it may result in pain. That has to be always done, because in my clinical practice itself, such problems has happened. We had a patient of paraplegia whom sensory loss was there below the legs or below the lower limbs. So a Nadi Swedha was done to the legs and it resulted in big burn. So it never happens in your clinical practice, because always sensory examination has to be done before that. Then if you are applying in hot objects to a particular site, always wrap with the 5 to 6 to 8 layers of toweling. That's very important. Suppose if you are applying a hot object to a particular site, always cover it with the 6 to 8 layers of toweling. Then if you apply a heat to a particular area, suppose if you are applying, if you intend to keep a heat modality for at least 20 to 30 minutes, but after applying that, within 5 minutes, we need to check for excessive redness, blisters, or signs of burning, because the response to the heat will be more at the initial 5 minutes. Later, the body will adapt to that temperature. But later, the body will adapt to that temperature. So initially, within the first 5 minutes, we need to check for the redness, any blistering, signs of burning, because the first 5 minutes is very important. Because if you are giving a hot water back to a particular site, don't keep it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes continuously. But after 5 minutes, remove that hot bag and see whether there is any redness, blistering, or signs of burning, etc. Next, risk of burn increases with the amount of subcutaneous fat, because generally our thinking is, suppose if the patient is very fat, we can apply more heat to that particular site. No, there is more subcutaneous fat at the site of application of heat. It acts as an insulator. It does not act as a conductor, because normally with our common sense we think that the patient is very obese, so we can give more heat at that particular site or more heat to that particular patient. But the reality is different. When we give more heat to a fatty person, fat acts as an insulator and it results in burns at that particular site. So that has always borne in mind whenever you apply heat to a obese person. And patients should not lie on top of a hot bag. Suppose if you are applying a hot bag, suppose if the patient is having a back pain, keeping a hot bag below the spine and lying down on the hot bag should not be encouraged, because the compression of that particular hot bag, it compromises the skin capillaries and it results in a normal vasoconstriction, because the normal vasodilator response cannot be achieved if you lie down on a hot bag or anything. So never keep a hot bag below the body. That has to be always borne in mind. Next slide, please. This is secondary effect of hot application. So normally with the local heat application, the maximal increase in the circulation and temperature occurs after 20 to 40 minutes of exposure. Because the maximum increase in the circulation and temperature occurs after 20 to 40 minutes of exposure. After this time, the heat application should be discontinued. So if you look into our heat therapies, we generally do up to 45 minutes. Suppose if you do a Patra Podli Swedha. So after initially 10 to 15 minutes of Abhinga and then 30 minutes of Swedha. That is the right procedure. In certain institutions, they may do it for 1 to 1.5 hours. Never do it, because the maximum increase in the circulation and temperature occurs after 20 to 40 minutes of exposure. After that, it starts gradually goes below the stipulated limit. So never do any heat therapy more than 40 minutes, because there is a practice in Kerala. So initial first day 45 minutes, next day 50 minutes, next 55, 60, and it goes on increasing up to 90 minutes. That's a very wrong method of application of our Swedana procedure. Never do it more than 40 or 45 minutes is the maximum upper limit of Swedana procedure. Never go beyond that limit. After this, then the heat application must be discontinued. And the recovery time of 1 hour should be given. So now, if you go to some resorts, so first first 45 minutes they will do a electric, then they will take a Shashteshali Pendasweda and go on doing that. Never do that. After giving a single hot modality or heat modality, a recovery time of 1 hour has to be given. If you do it in the morning, in the afternoon, you can again go for a Swedana procedure. That also is not allowed, because 24 hours is a better time to do one more Swedana again. But never do it within 1 hour. Always after a Swedana therapy, 1 hour rest has to be given for the as a recovery time from the heat response. This has to be always borne in mind whenever you apply heat to a particular, or if you do a Swedana procedure. Never do it within 1 hour. We have to give a gap of 1 hour for the next procedure. Next slide, please. Let's see how the response to the heat in our body. Initially, systemic body response. Excessive peripheral vasodilatation. Suppose if you are inside a Bashpasweda or inside a steamboat, what will happen? There will be a vasodilatation and diverts the large supply of blood from the internal organs, and there will be a drop in the blood pressure. So why have I put this point? There's a general tendency. Suppose if the patient wants to take a Bashpasweda, we will make the patient to sit inside the steamboats, and the therapist may go out from the therapy room or go to the other side of the room doing therapy to some other patient. Never do that, because there can be a drop in the blood pressure because of the peripheral vasodilatation, and patient may become unconscious, and by even the eventually sometimes the patient can even die also because of hypo, because of the low blood pressure. So always whenever we do a Sarvanga Sweda, always be with the patient, because excessive peripheral vasodilatation can lead to a drop in the blood pressure and patient may become unconscious. Always this has to be borne in mind, because this pathophysiology is very important. Because never, if you are always instruct the therapist, or if your doctor is doing that, so always be with the patient from the starting till the end. The patient comes out from the steamboats or the Bashpasweda. Just let us see what is the local body response. Occurs through the stimulation of temperature sensitivity sensory nerve, because whenever we apply heat, the temperature sensitive sensory nerves will be stimulated. The thermal receptors in the skin. The action of our Swedana is mainly because of the stimulation of the temperature sensitive sensory nerve endings. Next, this nerve send the signal to the spinal cord to the hypothalamus in the brain, where impulses are recognized as hot or cold. Then later on, the body will adapt to that. They adaptive response are triggered. And if you are applying for vasodilatation, if you are applying a cold, vasoconstriction. This is how we respond to heat or cold in our body. Next slide, please. Rebound phenomena. This is very important in our clinical practice. Always whenever we apply a heat, if it is not applied in the particular method, there is a phenomena called as a rebound phenomena. If we give heat, if the heat is exceeding the normal temperature, it can damage the tissues. That is called as a rebound phenomena. Occurs at the time that maximum therapeutic effect of heat or cold application is achieved. That means once the maximum therapeutic effect of the heat is applied, then later the rebound phenomena will be there. Before that, we need to stop the treatment. Heat produces maximum vasodilatation 20 to 30 minutes. Maximum is 30 minutes to 40 minutes. Beyond that, there will not be any vasodilatation. After that, there will be a vasoconstriction. Always remember, after 45 minutes, what will happen? instead of vasodilation, the blood vessels will constrict. So we need to stop the therapy before the blood vessels constrict. That is called as a rebound phenomena. So instead of getting a proper result, there will be opposite effect will be attained if you go do the therapy, do a heating application beyond the exceeded heat limit and beyond the exceeded time. And as I said, rightly said, a recovery time of 1 hour should be given. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next is the factors affecting the heat tolerance. So, certain areas of the skin have a sensitivity to temperature because certain areas are tolerable to heat, certain areas are not tolerable to the heat. The inner aspect of the wrist and forearm, the neck and the perineal areas, temperature sensitive. That is why whenever we do all periods, we always tell the therapist or we always advise the students to do at the inner aspect of the palm. Temperature നോക്കാൻ പറയും. Why? Because these are the areas which are more sensitive to temperature. So that we can have a proper assessment of the temperature of that particular thing, because there's the skin at the wrist and forearm are more sensitive. So always check the temperature at that particular site, not in the palmar area because that is not sensitive to heat. That is the reason we always check heat at that area. കൈയുടെ പുറകിൽ temperature നോക്കിയിട്ടാണ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ളത്. Okay. This is duration of the application. The therapeutic benefits of heat and cold application achieved within short periods. Time is not the fact. Giving more time does not give more benefit, but it has to be given till a stipulated time only. Next is area of body exposed. The larger the area exposed to heat and cold, the lower tolerance to temperature changes. Suppose if you are doing a localized weather, you can do it little more time. If you are doing it to the, suppose if you are doing a Nadi Sweda to a single joint, you can do up to 30 minutes to 40 minutes. But if you are doing a Bashpa Sweda, it has to be finished in 10 or 15 minutes because area of the body exposed is very important. The larger the area exposed to heat, the lower the tolerance to temperature changes. Next, damage to body surface area. Suppose if you are having an abrasion to a particular area following a fall, when you apply Swedana to that injured skin, these areas are more sensitive than the intact area. So always whenever you give a Swedana to a injured skin, it will be more sensitive to temperature than the normal skin. Next slide, please. Individual tolerance. The tolerance to temperature variation is affected by age and physical condition of the patient. The young and the aged are especially susceptible to heat and cold. So whenever we give heat therapy to old or children, what we have to be given in a lesser temperature for a lesser duration of time. That was to hold because the skin is very soft. If we give more temperature, it may result in burn. So because the tolerance to temperature variations is affected by the age. Also, the neurosensory impairments may interfere with the reception and perception of stimuli, increasing the risk of injury. So, in the younger age, the thinner skin layers in children and in older age, the people increase the risk of burns from heat and cold applicants. So, always be cautious when you do Swedana to children as well as to the adults because the skin is very soft and the tolerance level to heat will be very less in children and adult and old age people. Next slide, please. Next, what are the possible complications which can face whenever you do a Swedana procedure? One is pain. Suppose if you do in a more heated condition, it can result in pain, burns, maceration, especially with the moisture. Like Nadi Sweda is one thing where there can be a severe maceration. The redness of the skin will be there. Edema, that's non-inflammatory edema. You apply more heat that particular area. Pallor and hyperthermia. If you give Bashpa Sweda in a more temperature, it may result in hyperthermia and severe complications can occur. These are the complications which you generally encounter if more heat is applied to the particular patient. Next. Next is what are the effects of heat on the hemodynamic system? Normally, whenever we apply heat to a particular structure area, it increases the circulation by 1.5 to 2 times that of the normal. Suppose if 10 ml of blood goes to a particular site, if you apply heat, it may go up to 15 or 20. That means up to 1.5 to 2 times normal. More blood flow can be achieved by the application of the heat. Increase the metabolism. So whenever you apply heat, there will be increased metabolism at that particular site will be there. But it is contraindicated in first 2 to 3 days of injury. Suppose if you had a fall, a big hematoma formed. If you apply heat at that particular site, again there will be more bleeding. So first initial 2 to 3 days, we are not supposed to do the heat therapy because there will be increased metabolism that worsens the healing. Then increase the inflammation, phagocytosis, and wound healing. If we apply heat, it increases the phagocytosis and wound healing, and pain will be decreased, muscle spasm will be decreased, and decrease the tissue stiffness, because the tissue stiffness is reduced because fluid will be less viscous. Whenever you apply more heat, the viscosity of the blood and other fluids will be reduced. Now, next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. ഇത് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് കൊടുത്തായിരിക്കും ഇല്ലോ
Hello, sir. Are you there?
Yeah, I am here, but I am not able to see the video. What happened? The slide I am not able
You are not able to see the slide, huh?
to see. I am unable to see that slide.
Oh, we are seeing your slide, but we are not. Let me check. Parvati?
Hello.
Slide share. Is it visible now, sir?
It's not visible. Only the screen of
You can see the slide now,
is
ma'am.
there. It's not seen.
I can see. I can see.
Then I'm seeing some technical issue with Dr. Shibu's.
Now is it okay, sir? Are you able to see?
Unable to see that. No, I'm not able to see it.
I think all
Yes,
are
now I'm
able.
able to see.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. You can continue, sir.
So just the general instruction before starting in Sweda. Yes, I will see. Let's prior to doing and after the application of heat and cold. First is check the vital signs. That's very important because we consider Sweda as a very milder therapy. Before doing Bashpa Sweda, etc., we never check the vital sign. Always check the vital signs of the patient before doing any Swedana therapy because that's very important. Because patient, if the BP is very low, patient may collapse. Now, if the BP is very high, patient may develop a hemorrhagic condition if you do a Bashpa Sweda. Always check the vital signs before doing any therapy and maintain the correct temperature because we generally does not use any standardized procedure for assessing the temperature of anything. Suppose if you are doing a field chill, we don't assess the temperature of the oil. Just the therapist based on their experience, they will identify. But always or at the same time the bash whether their temperature setup is there. Most of the hospitals that temperature setup will be spoiled or they never listen to that temperature setup. Always look into the standardize the temperature. It is very important for any heat application, especially in Swedana procedure. Always expose the patient only to a safe temperature. As I said, never exceed beyond 45 degree. If it go above that, then it causes complications. And don't allow the patient to adjust the temperature because many times the patient, as soon as they sit in the bath, they say the temperature is not enough. I will just turn the knob to increase mode. Never allow the patient to adjust the temperature setting because after some time the patient may not cope up with the increased temperature. Don't give the permission for the patient to adjust the temperature. It has to be decided by the doctor. Also, never ignore the complaints of a patient. Many times, suppose if a patient sits in a, because one of the complications which I have faced, a patient has seated inside a Bashpa Sweda box. So normally a steel stool is put inside that. Normally, if it is done by an experienced therapist, they put a cloth over that steel stool and then only Bashpa Sweda will be done. This patient said that I feel like my thigh is getting more heat, but the therapist ignored that and he had a burn at that side. So never ignore the complaints of a patient during any Swedana procedure. We need to listen to the patient because the heat tolerance may change from patient to patient. Make sure that the patient is in a position to remove the application if it is causing him discomfort. Because we should give that privilege. If it is not, we have to give that privilege. Never leave the patient even for a short period. As I said, especially in the Bashpa Sweda, when we are doing a generalized Sweda procedure, never leave that patient even for a 1 minute. Always be with the patient because it can result in severe complication. Use of water from moist heat application to prevent scalding. Always if there is a water at a particular site of heat application, it has to be removed. Or while doing a potli Sweda, we need to remove the water from the lower part of the potli. Apply thin layer of oil to the skin. So before doing any Nadi Sweda, in certain areas, before doing Nadi Sweda, they never apply the oil. It should not be like that. Always any Swedana has to be done, especially in snigdhas. Always apply proper oil before any moist heat application. It's mandatory. Before using any moist heat application, apply a layer of oil. Otherwise, it will reduce soaking of the skin and therefore maceration. If any signs of complication, recognize, stop procedure immediately. Don't wait for that. Suppose if there's a slight redness, stop the procedure immediately. Don't wait for the redness to cover the entire hair. If small signs or if you have got a doubt during the procedure, stop it immediately. After the procedure, dry the area gently because after a Nadi Sweda, don't rub the area. Always just patting or just by rub. You should never rub that. Just tap the area gently for removing the moisture. Next slide, please. Next slide, Subriya. Next. Subriya, next slide, please. Please keep on 2 to 3. Next slide. Next is contraindications. Next slide. So next is the contraindications. One is unconscious patients should never do Svedana to such patients. Never attempt to do that. If the patient is not conscious, never attempt for any Sweda, even if it is local Sweda also, never attempt to do that. Careful not to burn the patient. Also, don't do Sweda at the paralyzed parts of the body. If it is to be done, it has to be in a very murdu Sweda. It has to be very murdu Sweda, but never apply too heat to a paralyzed parts of the body. Also, don't use on the legs or feet of a diabetic patient, because in diabetic patient there will be more demand. Whenever you apply heat, there is more demand of oxygenated blood, but because of the diabetic arteriopathy, patient cannot run. It results in burns, and finally, patient may result in amputation and other severe complications. And in severe edema and varicose vein, and in advanced vascular diseases of legs and foot. And never do it in malignancy. Next slide. The things are coming. Next slide. One more slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next. Okay. So as I said, rightly said in the initial or the outset of the class, that in Kerala, especially even though we are more doing Sweda, there are certain conditions where we should not overdo Sweda. One is the osteoarthritis, especially in degenerative disease like osteoarthritis. The Swedana enhances the osteophyte formation and deformities, and deformities tend to occur rapidly, though it reduces the pain temporarily. So I'll repeat. So normally, if an osteoarthritic patient comes to you, we generally go for Sweda. We'll advise the patient to be there in the hospital for 21 days. First Ruksha Sweda like Churna Pinda Sweda, then Stigma Sweda, then Patrapodli Sweda. We'll do Sweda continuously. What will happen? There will be a vasodilation, and more osteophytes will be deposited at the particular site, and loose calcium will be washed away from that. So finally, it results in more degenerative pathology, and there will be a rapid progression to deformity will occur. So don't overuse Sweda in osteoarthritic condition. The two slides, what you can see, in the first slide, you can see in the knee X-ray, where complete obliteration of the knee space with the disorganized bone pattern. And second is severe lumbar spondylitis. In such condition, if you do Swedana more, though for the first 2 weeks, the patient will have a benefit from the pain and stiffness. But after 2 or 3 weeks, the condition will become too much of worsening. So never do more Sweda even in osteoarthritic conditions, because it leads to rapid deformities. So never do it. Do it more Sweda in osteoarthritic conditions. Next slide, please. So this is the slide for first X-ray slide of an ankylosing spondylitis, where you see a typical bamboo spine. Second is a diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, severe osteophytic lippings. These are seen in dish. So in both these conditions, ankylosing spondylitis, during my starting of a practice, I used to do Swedana extensively in ankylosing spondylitis. But from my experience, I found that even though the patient will be very happy at the time of discharge, within 1 week, the patient will come back saying that patient developed more stiffness and pain. So because in ankylosing spondylitis, more of vasodilation leads to more syndesmophyte formation and more erosion of the bony structure. So in ankylosing spondylitis and diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, more Swedana lead to complication, because the more of Abhyanga and Basti would be more beneficial. Or if you wish to do Swedana, do it in a very slight temperature like 25 or 30, never cross beyond 40 degrees, because it is going to create more complications to the patient in the later stages of the life. So never do Sweda to ankylosing spondylitis and diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis patients. That has to be always borne in mind. Even though patient will be happy at the time of discharge, but in the long run, the patient will never be happy, and because of our irresponsibility, patient will land up in more severe deformities in the later part of their life. So that has to be always borne in mind when you deal with the ankylosis spondylitis and diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis. Next slide. Next slide. This is regenerative nerve condition, especially in demyelinating conditions like multiple sclerosis and transverse myelitis and Guillain-Barré syndrome. In multiple sclerosis, if 0.5 degrees centigrade of temperatures increase, there will be worsening of symptoms. Suppose the patient is having optic neuritis. If you give if you give a hot water bath itself, the patient may lose the vision. Or if you give more than 1 degree of heat to a patient with a multiple sclerosis, patient may collapse. So never give heat therapy to a regenerative nurse, especially in multiple sclerosis and in transverse myelitis. If you give, even advise the patient not to use a blanket, because even 1 degree of increased heat can worsen the symptoms to up to 50%. So never give heat therapy in multiple sclerosis and transverse myelitis. Even don't advise the patient to go in the sunlight itself. If they want to go for exercise, go in the morning or in the evening. Never get exposed to even a smaller heat, because 1 degree of increase in the heat can lead to too much complications. So that is always borne in mind. Never give in multiple. That's one of the red flag in Svedana. Never give Svedana in multiple sclerotic conditions. Even 0.5 degree of temperature should not be given to that patient. In a hot water bath also should not be advised. When transverse myelitis also, it can worsen the condition. Regeneration will be affected if you give more heat to such condition. Next slide. Next is in cardiomegaly and in ischemic heart disease. Patients with already having a cardiomegaly and ischemic heart disease, if they are having a arrhythmia or tachycardia, never attempt to do Svedana. If the patient is having a arrhythmia or a tachycardia, never do any Svedana. If a local Svedana may be fine, but better not to do a Svedana in a patients with the cardiomegaly and ischemic heart disease, especially in the presence with the tachycardia and arrhythmia. That has to go, especially in Barth-Biedl patients. It never do Barth-Biedl patient with the cardiomegaly and ischemic heart disease. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next is in chronic renal failure. If the patient is having a diabetic renal failure, or if the patient is having a renal failure due to other pathology, or if the patient is having an inherited polycystic kidney disease. In polycystic kidney disease, the patient is always having a hypertension, and the patient is going into a stage of an impending renal failure. If you do Svedana to such patients, it can accelerate the renal failure. From grade 1, it may go to grade 2 and grade 3. So never do Svedana to a patient with the chronic renal failure. It may be diabetic nephropathy, or if it is autoimmune renal failure, if it is renal failure due to a polycystic kidney, because in most of the renal patients will be having hypertension. So the complication of hypertension will be there. Then apart from that, it may accelerate the renal failure. So never attempt to do a Svedana in a patient with the renal failure. Next. Next slide. Next in Pakshagata. Pakshagata, the Svedana will be benefited, especially whenever the patient is having a spastic paralysis. Whenever the patient is having a spastic paralysis, the patient will be benefited out of this therapy. Flaccid status of a stroke patients would not be benefited by Svedana, whereas in the spastic stage it is beneficial. The reasons are Avarta Vada Lakshana in the initial stage and Kevala Vada Lakshana in the next phase. So always in spastic paralysis, you can go for a Svedana, but in flaccid paralysis, Svedana may not be that beneficial. But in flaccid paralysis, you can attempt to go for a Uddhavartana instead of other Svedana procedures. But in Pakshagata, always when you do a Svedana procedures, always think in mind that there will be sensory impairment will be there. Patient may not be able to talk properly, so we have to be always more cautious while doing any Svedana procedure to a Pakshagata patient. Next slide. Never do Svedana to a patient with the peripheral vascular occlusive disease, especially to the lower limb. Either it could be Berger's disease, or it could be a diabetic arteriopathy, or any peripheral vascular occlusive disease. Because when you give a heat to the particular site, suppose if you give heat to the foot, normally there has to be a vasodilation has to happen. More blood has to reach that site, and this heat has to be transferred to other part of the body. And there has to be a metabolism has to be increased to cope up with the given temperature. But in peripheral vascular disease, patient will not be able to provide that increased vasodilatation and blood supply and etc. So what will happen? It results in burns, and finally the patient may lead to a gangrenous condition. So always check for the peripheral pulses like dorsalis pedis, anterior tibialis, etc. before doing any Svedana to a patient. Especially if it is if the patient is a smoker, or if the patient is severe diabetic and dyslipidemia, always check the peripheral pulses before applying Svedana to that particular site, because it can result in burn, and it may result in gangrenous condition. This has to be always borne in your mind. Next slide. In peripheral neuropathy, it could be a diabetic neuropathy, or it could be autoimmune neuropathy, or any peripheral neuropathies. Never give too much of Sweda, because Sweda can lead to burns or accelerate the neuropathy. Instead of Bastis are always the better in managing peripheral neuropathy. Never give more Sweda to that particular, because patient will not be able to sense the temperature. The thermoregulation cannot be achieved. Rather, it damages the peripheral nerves, and there will be damage to the particular tissue. In diabetic pneumonia itself, Svedana is contraindicated. If you wish to do a Svedana, it can be given as a annalabana. Never do any Svedana directly to the lips when the patient is presented with the peripheral neuropathy. Or still, if you feel to do any Svedana, then annalabana with a milder temperature could be the best option. Never give any Patra Potli Svedana, etc. to a patient with the peripheral neuropathies. Next. This is in general, finally, the contraindications of hot application, especially in malignancy. Suppose if the patient has got a malignancy, never, suppose we don't know, because never do any Svedana, because even if it is cured or some unknowingly, the patient may be having some secondary. So in malignancies, the increased metabolism can lead to a further acceleration of the malignancy. So never do Svedana in any malignant condition. In any renal, heart, or lung pathologies, in lung like if it is a cough, etc., that we can give Uksha Sveda to the chest, but never give Sveda if there is having a COPD and other such conditions. Patient may become more breathlessness. Then acutely inflamed area. Suppose if you have acute sprain, never attempt to do a Sveda. You have to wait for 2-3 days. And patient with the severe paralysis, if the patient is having a open wounds and edema associated with venous or lymphatic disease, like if the patient is having a lymphadenitis or biliary lymphatic stasis, never do any Svedana. If the patient is having a severe headache, it may be due to blood pressure may be increased in such conditions, so never do Svedana in such condition. Patient with the metabolic disorders like diabetes and other metabolic disorders tend to accelerate in by Svedana. Never do Svedana in metabolic disorders. In very young and very old patient, and patient with a very high temperature. These are the conditions where Svedana is contraindicated. Next slide. So thank you one and all. So the class what I have taken, I'm not very happy with the class, because initially there was a technical issue. So I started the class after 40 minutes. So I couldn't complete, and patients are waiting outside the hospital. So I need to finish it very fast. And because of the technical issues, there was not a proper flow of the class. So I couldn't convey what I intend to convey. And I'm not at all happy with the particular class, but hope you got something from the class, and I will be thank you with this. Thank you one and all. And I finally thank Dr. Ramya for giving an opportunity, and apologies for her for the technical issues and whatever happened. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, Shibu sir. Could you stay back for 10 or 15 minutes, sir, for if some questions are there?
No. Ramya, if there is any questions, please WhatsApp me because patients are waiting outside because from 4 o'clock they're waiting outside. That's why I just skip.
Okay.
That's why I couldn't take a proper class. So if you got any questions, please send me to WhatsApp. I will answer you.
Okay, sir. Okay, I can understand. So I think there is, we cannot expect any technical issues to come or not before LS, sir. So it's okay. I mean, the presentation was really good. And I'm sure students have been getting many things from you. And if you could have had a lot of little more time, probably you were also more comfortable. But I know your patients are waiting outside. So I think we will, if at all any questions, they can be sent to us. Probably we'll be replying it after.
When I'm the free time, I will properly answer. And for Ashtanga students, I will take a better class once Vedana because I'm not happy with the present class. So we'll think later. Once again, thank you for the opportunity, Ramya.
Okay, sir. Okay. I think then since sir is not having enough time, we'll skip the summary by Shamma, which we were planning. I call upon Vaishali for vote of thanks. We will end the session with vote of thanks. Vaishali. Vaishali, you can talk.
Honorable resource person, respected teachers, organizing committee, delegates, and my dear friends, good evening all. By the end of the 5th session of Karma Siddhi 2020, it is great honor to deliver vote of thanks to all of you who have been a part of this webinar, making it a great success. First of all of Ashtangam Ayurveda Chikitsalayam and Vidyapeetham, I extend hearty thanks to our honorable resource person, Dr. Shibu Varghese, Professor of Panchakarma and Superintendent, Nangilil Ayurveda College, Kodamangalam. Thank you, sir, for your valuable session on mode of action of Sweta and its practical aspects.
Thank you.
We extend our extreme gratefulness Vaidhi Ramya ma'am, Vice Principal and HO Panchakarma Department, Ashtangam, and Vaidhi Sri Parvati madam, I would extend my gratitude to Vaidhi Rahul sir, HOD, Department of Roganidhanam Evam Vikruti Vijnaniyam, Ashtangam, who have felicitated the session. I thank Subhana, final year student, for reciting the prayer. I would also like to thank Ram Manohar Sai for giving the welcome speech. I also thank all the delegates and my dear friends for your coordination and successful participation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vaishali. Thank you, Shibu sir, once again for spending your valuable time with us. And as you already told, you will come to our students once again to take a detailed session on Svedana. So I think Ashtangam students will be happy to hear from you. And we are all happy with you. Thank you, sir. And we can understand the stress of a clinician. So happy day for you and happy day all of you, to all of you. And then we have the next session by Dr. Praveen on research updates on mode of action of Panchakarma tomorrow at 3 o'clock